perhaps useless forms of play. And was that a good effect? Getting too playful here. So I thought I'd quote. This seems like a possibly lazy thing to do, but I thought I'd quote some of the great predictive texts of the 20th century, seeing as we're looking at 2020, which is actually quite a long way away to look at. So I thought I'd start with Brave New World. The director and his students stood for a short time watching a game of centrifugal bumblepuppy. 20 children were grouped in a circle around a chrome steel tower. A ball thrown up so as to land on the platform at the top of the tower rolled down into the interior, fell on a rapidly revolving disc, was hurled through one or other of the numerous apertures pierced in the cylindrical casing and had to be caught. So there's this game of centrifugal bumblepuppy in Brave New World, which is partly a replacement for kids just throwing a ball to each other, because that doesn't require any manufacturing, and manufacturing is really important. But it's also Huxley's way of talking about these really elaborate ways that we find to distract ourselves, and elaborate ways that society will find to distract us. So it's a form of social control. To quote Neil Postman from Amusing Ourselves to Death, Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy and the centrifugal bumblepuppy. As Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny fail to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. In 1984, Huxley added, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. So commentators such as Lessig recognise that the internet is a contested space that must be actively defended from people who want to control and own it. And this Orwellian fear of a captured internet is obviously real. And in the coming years, we will see this battle intensify as the second billion get onto the internet, and we get this problem of what Ethan Zuckerman referred to as the problem of the internet. And I'll return to that in a minute. In contrast, Huxley's dystopian vision, this sees people being distracted by interactive media, the feelings, sex, the internet, and games, all kind of brought nicely together in the hot coffee mod of Grand Theft Auto. I don't think that Huxley could have foreseen a bumblepuppy quite as elaborate as Grand Theft Auto, let alone a bumblepuppy quite as elaborate as Second Life. But Huxley's view is still a problem, a dystopia of inflicted pleasures. What happens when we can generate our own pleasures to distract ourselves? So I've mentioned 1984, I've mentioned Brave New World. The third classic of predictive fiction that I want to mention is the Judge Dredd stories from 2000 AD. Now, in one issue of 2000 AD, in Mega City 1, it's become illegal to do a useless hobby. If you do a useless hobby, you aren't contributing to society in any way. And Judge Dredd arrests a guy who spent 15 years trying to... An egg gets dropped from an elaborate mechanism, and he tries to headbutt this egg into a bucket of sand. And he gets arrested for this because it's a completely useless form of activity. And if you look at the present cyberspace, it's hard not to feel at least some sympathy for Judge Dredd's position on this. You do see an awful lot of people attempting to headbutt eggs into buckets. So as we look forward, it's possible to see this thread of useless and distracting hobbies becoming a real issue for those of us who are concerned about the level of political engagement in society. It's been said that one of the reasons that the UK has never had a successful revolution is because of a flaw in our British character that can be boiled down to one word: train spotting. I'm a bit scared that this is becoming a cyberspace trend, and that these are distracting hobbies. It's very easy to see the dangers to the internet of those who want to control the internet, but it's more difficult, and it might be hard to fight them. It's more difficult to tackle this inner bumble puppy question of how we just distract ourselves. But this is my pessimistic view of cyberspace in 2020. It's a space of dumb distractions and mindless chatter, petty bickering, dissipated energies. My optimistic view, let me begin just with a quick critique of user-generated content as a phrase. This is a phrase that reveals more about people who want to take these things that are being made and control them. I've worked in interactive TV for a long time, and I always hated those conferences where people talked about content. People who make stuff don't refer to it in such a derogatory way as content. People don't feel that that's what they're making. They certainly don't feel that they're generating content like some kind of content robots in a factory. And they certainly don't feel that they're user-generating content. That just makes me think of kind of junkie robots in a factory. People make stuff. People who make films, whether they're professionals or amateurs, they make films and they make stuff that they care about. So what kind of stuff will we be making in 2020, and what does that kind of stuff mean for citizenship? So I mentioned this recent Mori poll that 32% of the UK population still don't know anything about climate change, and there's been little significant lifestyle change. But we do get trend forecasters, as diverse as Marion Saltzman, Rohit Talwar, Faith Popcorn, all saying that there's a rise, and predicting a rise in environmental concern, conscientious consumption, and the idea of a kind of moral status anxiety. It isn't about anymore what you've got, it's about whether what you've got is an important thing morally and what you do morally. This is a trend that I think is worth looking at, and this trend favours the locally made and the personally made over the mass manufactured. So it's interesting to ask what that trend means for cyberspace. I'm not looking at these. Paul Harris of The Guardian recently described the Arcade Fire as a band who was shaped in the innocent 1990s, when people talked about the end of history. And then 9/11 came along, climate fear came along, innocence was washed away, and their music seems to capture a lot of that. I think that's a trend you can also see running on power. So that's a trend that I think we can see through all the kind of daft song mimes on YouTube and all the kind of glitter outfits of MySpace. You can see these concerns about terror, concerns about war, concerns about the environment, concerns about imperialism. Those things I see coming to the fore. And this kind of seriousness is picked up in the UK by Gordon Brown. He recently said, I think we're moving from a period when, if you like, celebrity matters, when people have become famous for being famous. I think you can see that in other countries too. People are moving away from that to what lies behind the character and the personality. People are wanting the concerns that they have discussed in a rounded way. So I'm not sure that the people are in love with trivia. I hope Gordon Brown is right about it. David Miliband, who's a possible candidate for Labour leadership, says this. In the 1950s were the I need era, where people required state help with housing, education, health. Then came the 1980s, the I want era, when everyone yearned for material wealth. Today we are in the I can era, when government and the people, liberated, better informed by new technology, yet still wanting the reassurance and involvement in community causes, can and must work together to solve the challenges of a chaotic world. The notion that the country that succeeds will be the country of players, not spectators, is a very powerful notion. The audience has gone to the stage. So we get these political moves towards this. It's a seductive view. People no longer spectators of the government, the players in it. we can see this kind of idea of mass participation, people participating meaningfully in the polis, but as independent players. You get this in the autonomous writers of Verno and Negri. So, by 2020, should we maintain free use of the internet? We'll have the technology to enable the multitude, but will we have the will? Just an aside here, a Swarm of Angels. Do people know this project? Swarm of Angels is an open source film project. The aim is to make a £1 million film. First internet funded, crewed and distributed feature film. You join by paying £25. You can vote on things, and if they get 50,000 users, 50,000 angels contributing, then we can make that kind of film. So it isn't just these small little films. This is being put forward as Cinema 2.0, and I think it's an interesting experiment to watch. So if we can come together on those kinds of things, can we come together on political issues? And Wisdom of the Crowd supposedly suggests that autonomy, communication and decentralisation would be good at making decisions. But will we overcome our differences? So going back to Zuckerman's problem with the internet, we now have more than 1 billion people online. But the idea that we all work and play on a common internet is an illusion. As Zuckerman says, the web is becoming ever more fragmented and international borders are increasingly visible online. More and more web pages are appearing in languages other than English. China has more than 130 million internet users and is starting to play by its own rules. Soon to follow, the Middle East, India, Russia and Brazil. Is the technology that we thought was uniting us really dividing us? I think that's the big challenge for cyberspace in 2020, is to accommodate the second, third and fourth billions as they get online, because they aren't as similar to us as the first billion are. We're going to clash with them an awful lot more. We're going to have lots of Danish cartoon type issues. There's going to be a lot of fighting that wasn't there before. Frank Ferrudi said that a true community is something that it's difficult to leave. And the thing about internet communities is that they are quite easy to leave. So either the internets are going to segment out and have little to do with each other, reflecting issues of multiculturalism, integration, citizenship that we see in physical migration, for instance, across Europe. Or we will find ways of coming together. And one project I'm interested in watching is the e-twinning project, which is a schools project. Kids working in classrooms with other schools across Europe. Will we have a state by 2020 when education systems and governments are running e-twinning between internets, so that internets can understand each other? So, either way, I think play is going to be crucial to this kind of thing. It's been said that play is intrinsically ethical, because in order to play with somebody, I need to be able to imagine them, and I need to imagine them imagining me, and I need to imagine them imagining me as something that perhaps I'm not. This is my father imagining himself as something that he isn't with his friends at work. This is something intrinsically kind of ethic building behaviour. So, what Pat Kane suggests in his book, The Play Ethic, is these kinds of behaviours, play behaviours, are crucially important. Whether we mean being a player citizen in Miliband's play estate, or whether we mean being citizens of cyberspace, how we play with each other will be the crucial thing. So really the suggestion is that we build what Pat Kane calls a well-constructed playground, and we don't get distracted by these intense bumble puppies that are all too easy to be distracted by. That's me. Sorry about the mess at the start. It would have been smoother.